Yogena chittasya padena vacham malam sharirasya cha vaidyakena yopakarot tam pravaram muninam patanjalim pranjaliranatosmi.
Okay, welcome back. So, continuing SadhanaPada, we had one session. Just to give a quick background, we had a long discussion about Samadhi on chapter 1, 51 verses we covered. And Samadhi is a state of mind. It's not a fixed state of mind. In fact, it's a continuum. Starting from a state where we have complete control over the mental activities, extending up to a state where there is no mental activities are active. That way, according to the concept of yoga, or according to the methodology of Patanjali's yoga, the subject, which is Purusha, or the real seer, which is the Atma or Purusha, whatever we call it, it doesn't have anything else but itself to recognize. So this is the idea of yoga. So those who are serious students, you may find a slight difference in the approach of Advaita Vedanta and yoga here. Advaita Vedanta, the idea is slightly different. Yoga, it is slightly different, but it doesn't matter. It is only at the finer steps. The goal is the same. The goal of Advaita Vedanta is to recognize your identity or reinforce your identity with the Atma. The goal of your yoga is also to reinforce my identity with the Purusha. So both are the same. But the final step, Advaita Vedanta tells that when your mind is pure and calm, what is going to happen is you will, means with the knowledge you grasped, you will be able to remove your habitual understanding and you will be able to understand your true self. Yoga has a slightly different approach. It is more, little bit more experiential. It's a, with advanced practice, if you can cease all the mental modifications, the consciousness do not, means typically the consciousness is conscious of a particular vritti or a thought that is happening in my mind. And if there is no thought to illumine, there is no way for the consciousness to miss itself. And that stage is known as Kaivalya. That is why you would see that in the Vedanta circles, you use a term called moksha. In the Patanjali yoga circles, you will use a term called Kaivalya. Both refers to the same state, but there is a slight difference in approaching these two states. So this is for the serious students. So Kevalasya Bhava, that is the literal meaning of the word Kaivalya. It means, Kevala means that's the only one exists. There is no vrittis exist, but the Atma only exists. So it cannot miss it. Fine. That's fantastic. We talked about the different levels of Samadhi, Samprajnada, Asamprajnada, and within Samprajnada you have Vitarka, Savitarka, Nirvitarka, Vichara, Savichara, Nirvichara, Ananda, Asmita. This much you came, right? So then finally it went to Asamprajnada Samadhi. So these are the different levels of Samadhi. That's why it's not a binary fixed state, it's a continuum, starting from one end to the other. You can progressively get into the other stages through practices. We had a long discussion on that topic. From there, we said, fine, looks great, but how do I get there? That's where the SadhanaPada came in. So we SadhanaPada, the key topics we already identified. It covers mainly two topics. One is the Kriya Yoga, and the other one is a portion of the Ashtanga Yoga. That's what is covered in this chapter. the 5 out of 8 steps of Ashtanga Yoga, and something else called Kriya Yoga is covered. So these are steps or sadhanas which helps a seeker from his current state of where we are to the state of samadhi. So please understand, right? So this chapter gives you how to get into that samadhi state from my current state. This is the scope of SadhanaPada. So the SadhanaPada, we started with the topic called Kriya Yoga. Before getting into Ashtanga Yoga, we started with Kriya Yoga. So what is Kriya Yoga? So that is the topic we saw and last week. And why Kriya Yoga? What is the goal of this Kriya Yoga? So this is the topic we saw in the last class. And now we are going to see from verse 3 to 9 in the SadhanaPada, how to minimize your mental impurities or mental modifications. So that's the topic. So let's quickly go through the verses we covered last week. So the first topic, we defined Kriya Yoga. So beautiful definition, right? So we heard Kriya Yoga is Tapa, Swadhyaya, Ishvara Pranidhani is Kriya Yoga. Tapa, Swadhyaya and Ishvara Pranidhana is Kriya Yoga. So that was the definition of Kriya Yoga. Tapas means the disciplines. Swadhyaya means the study of the scriptures or study of yourself. And then Ishvara Pranidhana means dedication to Ishvara. So in the commentary, Vyasa said, when you call about the dedication of your activities to Ishvara, it means Ishvara Arpana Buddhi and Prasada Buddhi. Dedicate all your kriyas in front of Ishvara and get whenever you get the results, consider that results as a prasada from the Ishvara. This is what is the Ishvara Pranidhana talked here for the commentator. So when you put all these things together, this is nothing but the Karma Yoga we talked earlier in the Bhagavad Gita. So the first topic is Kriya Yoga. Kriya Yoga consists of 3 steps. Tapas, you need certain discipline. Any goals you pursue in life, you need to have some discipline. And that discipline is tapas. Swadhyaya means you need to have some knowledge in what you are pursuing. You cannot randomly operate. Suppose you want to improve your health. You need to know certain things, right? You need to know the different types of exercises, aerobic and aerobic exercises. There's strength training or cardio, different types of things you need to know. Otherwise, what you will do? You will just operate without proper knowledge. So this study is very important. Discipline is important. And Ishvara Pranidhana is important. This constitutes the Kriya Yoga. So that's we saw. Tapa, Swadhyaya, Ishvara Pranidhana. And then we saw that why do you need Kriya Yoga, right? What is the goal of Kriya Yoga? So the Kriya Yoga, the goal is Samadhi Bhavana Artha. The goal of Kriya Yoga is Samadhi, leading you to Samadhi. That is the goal of Kriya Yoga. How? Because we saw that Samadhi can be achieved through Chitta Vritti Nirodha. So if you look at the second chapter of the Gita, the first chapter of the Yoga Sutra, when you talk about Samadhi, right? So Samadhi has, Patanjali said, Yogaha Chitta Vritti Nirodha. Tada Drishtuhu Surupe Avasthanam Vritti Sarupya Mitaratra. After that, what was that? Vrittaya Panchatayaha. If you want to control your vrittis, there are 5 types of vrittis. And then he put another classification there. Klishta and Aklishta. Klishta means impediments or obstacles. Some of the vrittis that comes in my chitta will obstruct my mind getting into samadhi. Please understand this. some of the vrittis are klishta vrittis, some of the vrittis are aklishta vrittis. Aklishta vrittis are the vrittis that will help me to gain samadhi. See, remember, sometimes some means ultimate level of samadhi is the cessation of all vrittis, but that is achieved only through some other vrittis. Means we use the example of a like a what you call, right, a pin or a thorn used to take another thorn. So like that, some vrittis will help you to lead into samadhi. Some vrittis will block you from reaching the samadhi. In fact, it will take you back. So you need to have if you want to reach samadhi, you need to have a strategy to block these klishta vrittis or reduce these klishta vrittis or mitigate these klishta vrittis. How do I mitigate or reduce or avoid these klishta vrittis? Kriya Yoga. So the goal of Kriya Yoga is to lead you to samadhi by minimizing the impact of these klishta vrittis, reducing these klishta vrittis, reducing the impact of these klishta vrittis, and eventually removing the klishta vrittis beyond a threshold so that I can proceed to samadhi. So you can compare. We did a comparison or a parallel analysis with Bhagavad Gita. This is exactly what Bhagavad Gita said. Karma Yoga is not going to take you directly to moksha, but Karma Yoga will give you, facilitate an environment which is going to help you to go to the next level. So that's why Arjuna, when he was asking, right, why don't I go to moksha, means the Jnana Yoga directly? Arjuna said, no. Krishna said, no, you cannot. It is a serial step. First, you have to go through this. So even before starting the Ashtanga Yoga, this step is important. Tapa, Satyaya, Ishvara Pranidhana. Of course, this is part of Ashtanga Yoga. This is part of the Yamas, Niyamas portion. But still, it is called out by itself as a separate topic because a lot of time people fail because of this. If you, especially the Ishwararpana Buddhi, Prasada Buddhi is not developed, you will develop binding attachment, and that can definitely create problems in our spiritual path. So this Kriya Yoga is highly emphasized and recommended by Patanjali. So this is pretty much what we covered. Any questions?
So this tapa, for our practical purpose, we can say like kind of a self-control or something like that, right?
It's a discipline. That's it. That's all. See, this is the thing is, the Puranas will paint a different story as we joking, right? Somebody will hanging down from a tree, right, or any discipline you put forth. See, suppose you have a goal of weight loss. You need to have certain discipline. If you do the intermittent fasting, I don't know, I'm consistently pulling your example, right? You need to have some discipline, right? Morning, you only told me like you used to have coffee or tea, but you cannot have it till 10 o'clock. Yeah. That's a discipline.
Also, Rajaji, it often feels like climbing a slippery slope. You know, you Correct. Make a little progress and then you fall down. You know, consistency, you just have to keep on getting back to it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So this discipline is very important. Why it is a slippery slope? It's a sometimes what you call a deadlock, right? A is impacting B and B is impacting A.
Yeah.
So they say, right, you need to have an experience to get a job, and without a job, you won't get experience.
Exactly.
First job is always a problem.
Yeah.
So like that. So what happens? Your mental impressions will control your action. And when you do the action, it will create new impression. So how can you act in such a way that the push and pull of these mental impressions are minimum? Any action for that matter, it creates an impression. Let's say that you take the most swatik action. of doing service to others. But if I am obsessed, if I am extremely worried about the result, that very action is going to put some impression in my mind. Anxiety, worry, everything. Next time, what is going to happen? That anxiety and worry is going to control me. So that's why the trick comes in here. The Ishwararpana Buddhi, Prasada Buddhi, it's a miraculous thing. The healing. How you can perform the action. Remember, I was literally showing you the book written by one of the world's famous coach, cricket coach, Paddy Utpin. I was showing you one paragraph, the entire paragraph, exactly the same thing. If you want to be in a zone, if you want to be in a best player, if you want to be your best version in that game, you have to detach yourself from results. You have to detach yourself from the outcome. You have to detach yourself from the outcome. It was literally, he is calling out 5 points. Last week, we discussed this. It's the same. This is reinforced by science. This is reinforced by psychology. This is reinforced by Martin Seligman. This is reinforced by the book Flow. This is I read a famous actually coaching tennis players biography. I'll tell you the book, but exactly the same thing is called out. So forget about the spiritual path. If you want to be efficient in your activity, this is mandatory. So this Kriya Yoga is very important. So whether you call it as Kriya Yoga or Karma Yoga, it doesn't matter. Probably you may want to follow the Karma Yoga path of the Bhagavad Gita because it's more well-defined, well-structured. So it's very good. How do you do the Karma Yoga? Because it starts from chapter 2, expands to get into chapter 3, and get into a bigger dimension or a new dimension or a universal dimension in chapter 4. Remember the eating, the breathing, your yoga, your everything for that matter, your puja, every discipline you do, right? Whether it is a spiritual discipline, the religious discipline, means let me avoid the word spiritual discipline, right? Whether this is a religious discipline, what is that religious discipline? You do a Satyanarayana puja at home, or you do a Ganapati Homam at home, or you do a Bhagavati Seva at home. It means those are the religious activity. On the other side, I'm investing some money in the stock, or I'm going to work doing a professional presentation. The entire stuff is included in that scope. So while Yoga Sutra is giving you the vertical slice of practice, the practice finds its universal outlook in the Bhagavad Gita. So this is very important to understand. So as people living in the world, this manual, Yoga Sutra, is perfect for a person dedicating in a Himalayan ashram with sitting and meditating. But this is good for us to understand. But how you and I will practice, it finds its full expression in the Bhagavad Gita, especially chapter 3, chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4, chapter 5, and chapter 18. So the Karma Yoga. Okay. So now, when you talk about Klishta, what are the different types of Klishta? So that's the next verse. So let's try to listen the sutra. Sorry, I have a small technical challenge. So he tells avidya, asmita, ragadvesha, abhinivesha, kleshaha. There are 5 types of kleshas. Let's listen.
Avidya, asmita, ragadveshabhiniveshaha, kleshaha.
So look at the systematic way of this Yoga Sutra. So we said Kriya Yoga is, what is Kriya Yoga is defined. Tapa, Swadhyaya, Ishvara Pranidhana. What is the goal of Kriya Yoga? It leads me to Samadhi, which is discussed in the whole chapter 1. How? By helping me to control the Krishnavatis. Now, what are all the different types of Krishnavatis? That's what is explained. Where the Kriya Yoga is going to help me. One is the 5 types of kleshas are, one is called avidya, second one is called asmita, the third one is called raga, the fourth is called dvesha, and the fifth one is called abhinivesha. Let's try to understand each one of that in detail. So the first one is avidya. The classic definition is, vidya means what? All of you know, right? Vidya. Knowledge. Vid means to know. Vidya means knowledge. So if you put avidya, lack of knowledge, ignorance. So the larger definition in the Yoga Sutra or Bhagavad Gita is this biggest type of ignorance. Okay, I don't know nuclear physics. That is an ignorance. I don't know woodwork. That is another ignorance. I don't know about textile technology. That's all ignorance. But what is the highest level of ignorance? Spiritual ignorance. If you don't know yourself, that is the biggest ignorance. So, klesha vrittis, certain vrittis will create this spiritual ignorance. What is the spiritual ignorance? Try to understand a little bit more. Who am I? I am the Atma. I am the Purusha. But what is my feeling? I am this body and the mind. You may, even now when I say that, you may feel that that is the correct understanding. But imagine that you were in a dream last night. In that dream, you had an ice cream. And when you were having that ice cream, if I come and ask you, who are you? You may say that the person who is eating the ice cream is me. That body is my body, that mind is my mind, and that taste I'm enjoying is my taste, etc. While you're away from that order of reality, you may know that, yes, I had that relative experience, but the real me that was common from that dream state and the waking state right now is not the dream body, not the waking body, but the consciousness. So, avidya is that type of vrittis which gives me that spiritual forgetting or veiling, because it just blocks my vision so that I take myself as something different. So that is the first type of kleshas, avidya. Spiritual ignorance creates problem. For example, suppose you take yourself as that dream body. What happens? Anything happens to that when that dream body gets old. You are sad. Why? Because my identity is with that dream body, and any changes to that dream body becomes my problem. But if you have that understanding that it is a body which is given to me for that time, for that space, for that duration, it is still a problem, but the problem is not my problem, but the problem is that dream body's problem. I don't cease to exist, but my body ceases to exist. So the problem becomes there is a shift in the problem from me to the dream body. If you have that knowledge right now, what happens? Any problem that happens here, still I will have to face that, Still, I have to be able to manage that as long as I live here. But that's not the end of the world for me. So this is the first type of klesha, avidya. Second klesha is asmita. Asmita. Asmita means I-ness. I-ness. Which means, again, it is related to avidya. When I have avidya, this asmita comes in. The individuality comes in. That vrittis, which makes me believe that I am that dream body. That individuality of myself. That is also a problem. So avidya, asmita. Now, when you have this asmita, what is going to happen? Raga. Not attachment. Not mere attachment. Everybody will have attachment. See, I'm attached to this class. I'm attached to my daughter. I'm attached to my family. I'm attached to all of you as friends. I'm attached to my job. I'm attached to my profession. I'm attached to my body. But if that attachment becomes binding attachment, that becomes raga. Remember, we had a lot of discussion about this in Bhagavad Gita. Krishna said, Indriyan indriyarthebhyaha ragadveshau vyavasthitau. Then what he tells, it is going to be there as long as you are living in this body. You cannot say that you cannot have ragadvesha. Then he tells what? Tayoha na vasham agasthai. Don't come under their sway. That's all you need. See, I may like Chinese food. You may like Mexican food. So I cannot say that I'm a spiritual person. So I mean, like all the foods exactly the same. No, that's not a problem. What is a problem? Let's say that I like coffee instead of tea. So when I go to a home, if I get a tea, if I get upset, if I'm so much obsessed with coffee, that's a problem. There's nothing in drinking coffee or wanting coffee. So this is very well explained in our Puranas by clearly associating certain, for example, Krishna. What is the color of his cloth? Always yellow. Pidambara. What is the music instrument he plays? Flute. And he has certain ragas. So he has likes and dislikes. Saraswati is Veena. Muruga has a peacock. Whereas Lord Shiva has a different, means he is interested in dance in a different way. Tandava. But that is not going to put anything binding. So this raga and dvesha, like binding attachment, addiction. Dvesha is opposite. Dvesha means I want to avoid it. I cannot stand with that. That is dvesha. So raga dvesha. Then finally, abhinivesha. Abhinivesha is a very interesting word. So when you have this asmita, let's say that I'm in dream, I have this asmita of dream ego. I am so much obsessed in the dream life. I don't want to get out of that dream life. I'm always worried this will come to an end. Yes, of course, you have to take care of your body and you have to try to live as much as possible. But there's only one fact that is, when you are born, there is only one thing that you can certainly say about you. I don't know whether I live 15 years. I don't know whether I'll become an engineer. I don't know whether I'll be succeeding in this. I don't know whether I will have a children. I don't know. I don't know where I will travel. Nobody can say any of these things. But there is one fact which is guaranteed. Someday I will die. Someday I will die. And if you think that That will not happen. If you're too much worried about that, worrying about the inevitable, that is what is abnegation. See, you might have read a lot of jokes about this particular topic. The other day I was reading a joke. It was very interesting. One person is in 88 or 90. He was very much in the hospital. The doctor said, the son, there is a few days only or a few hours only left for this person. And the son went and talked to the father. Father, what can I do? And the father said, can I get a different doctor? Because even in that 88 years, 90 years, he loves to live. See, I'll tell you one more example. Imagine when you're in school, like in college or schools, 10th or 11th or 12th. If you consider your age, what you are right now, what would have been your perception? Was that a young age or an old age? You would have thought that that's an old age. Now you are in that age. What is your perception? So in Mahabharata, there is a beautiful episode. There are 5 questions in Yaksha as to Yudhishthira. One of the question was, what is the biggest wonder or miracle of the world? He said, Yudhishthira's answer was very brilliant. He said, every day human beings say that, see, people are being taken to the graveyard. Every day. But he never thinks about things that, he always thinks that his life is eternal. So that is abnegation. These are the 5 types of kleshas. So karma yoga or kriya yoga is going to help to mitigate these 5 different types of the vrittis that leads me to these type of kleshas. Please note that this is common theme of all the Indic or Vedic tradition, whether it is Nyaya, Vaisheshika, Sankhya, Yoga, Vedanta, everything is staying around this. These are the challenge problems. Okay, so let's go to the next sutra.
Avidya kshetram uttaresham prasuptatanu vichchinnodaranam.
Avidya kshetram uttaresham prasupta tanu vichinna udarana. So we saw that there are 5 types of kleshas. Look at this. This is all dicing and slicing. So chitta vrittis can be klishta, aklishta. Klishta vrittis will help me, means it will block my progress towards samadhi. Aklishta vrittis will help me to reach samadhi. And the klishta vrittis can be of 5 types. So we saw that, right? Avidya, asmita, raga, dvesha, abhinivesha. And now each of these klishta vrittis can be in one of the 4 states. It can be in one of the 4 states. So remember, 5 klishta vrittis are there, and each one of them has a life cycle or state transition of 4 states. Each of these klishta vrittis can be in 4 states. One is prasupta, tanu, vischinna, udara. These are the 4 different states. Let's try to understand each one of this. Again, look at the psychological model of the Yoga Sutra. Look at the analytical detail. So first one is prasupta. Prasupta means dormant. It's not manifested. This particular vritti. It is in the dormant form or in the seed form. Okay. What happens is, if I'm exposed to certain situations, if I start doing it, it can easily come and get me. So it's not at there, but if I am exposed to certain things, for example, certain people, they get exposed to, say, drugs or alcohol, maybe one time. Immediately you can say that, but before that, they were never addicted to that. But once they get in, they find some fascination in that. And some people do not have that vrittis. They never ever do that. I'm 100% sure, like these are the things we need to, we'll see how to meditate upon this and identify certain prasupta kleshas. So that is the first, means the beginning state. It is there as dormant, but it is not yet manifested. So now if you look at the Vedic thing, from where you got that dormant seed? Past, prarabdha. So that is the law of karma. So that is the prasupta. The second thing is called tanu. Tanu means very weakened state. Like it's a little bit there. It's not 100% dormant, but I got exposed to certain things. Okay, I started drinking a little bit, 1 or 2 times, social drinking. So it is there, but I'm okay. If I don't drink, there is nothing. But it can go in both directions. I get a better chance to control here, but if it goes beyond certain level, it will be difficult. Yes, it is there, means I see some fascination, but I'm not addicted. That state is called tanu. The third category or the stage is called vichinna. Vichinna means there is strong tendency is there. But what happened? It's less active. Remember, the other one is, it is weak, means the tendency, the power is very less. The other one is power is there, but it is less active. Why? I'm distanced or separated. I don't have an opportunity to go to a bar. I don't get the drugs. So I'm distanced from it, or I'm separated from it. So the tendencies are pushing me and pulling me. This is a little bit more dangerous state. So tanu is the state where you can detect it and fix it. Prasupta means sometimes you may not even know. So tanu is the state, means you need to understand, right? So you have to, means we'll see this later point of time, you will see meditation techniques developed on each one of these. Tanu, vichinna means it is separated or splitted. You don't have that connection. So the difference you need to understand between tanu and vichinna. Tanu means it is very weak. You can easily control it. You are not, it is there. I like to have it, but it's okay. If I can substitute it with something else, etc. Vichinna means still it's there and strong, but I'm not connected. It doesn't find an expression as an action. Why? I don't have an opportunity. So the so-called morality and discipline and the good character of our generation, half of that is lack of opportunity. Isn't it? Sometimes you say that to your children, right? I didn't do this, I didn't do that. Why? I didn't have an opportunity to do this.
Lack of opportunity to do the bad thing.
Exactly. See, the whole village used to school you, right? If you're in a village. If you find yourself in a theater, the whole village comes to know about this. So lack of opportunity gives us, this is vichinna. So finally, udara means plenty. It's very active, fully operational. And it manifests itself through different actions. So these are the 4 stages of klesha. So going back, the goal of Kriya Yoga is to get into some, help me to reach my move to samadhi. And how it helps is, the biggest obstacle of samadhi is these klesha vrittis. The klishta vrittis are of 5 types: avidya, asmita, raga, dvesha, abhinivesha. And each one of this can be in 4 different states. One of the 4 different states: prasupta, tanu, vischinna, and udara. Now the style of Yoga Sutra is what? So you talked about that 5 different types of kleshta vritti. And now this verse, which is the 4th verse, is going to give you the different states of those 5 different types of kleshta vrittis. Now, each of those kleshta vrittis are expanded. What is avidya? What is asmita? What is raga, dvesha? All those details are given. So that is coming. So let's listen to that. So you can see, right? So the avidya is expanded further in Sutra 2, 4, and 5. Then 2, 6, we have the asmita. 7, you have the raga. 8, dvesha. And 9, you have the abhinivesha. So this is the style. So now we go to avidya. What is avidya?
Anitya shuchi dukkhanatmasu nitya shuchi sukhatma ghyatiravidya.
Brilliant definition. Avidya means, we said, spiritual ignorance. What is that spiritual ignorance? So he tells, anitya, ashuchi, dukkha, anatma. So you see the anitya vastu as what? Nitya vastu. So anitya, ashuchi, dukkha, anatma. How do you see? Nitya, shuchi, sukha, atma khyadar. That is the process by which you see the anitya as nitya, the process by which you see the ashuchi as shuchi, the process by which you see dukkha as sukha, the process by which you see the anatma as atma is called avidya. This is the complete spiritual ignorance. So ignorance is that notion that takes the self, which is joyful, pure, eternal, to be non-self, which is painful, unclean, and temporary. Unclean means unpure, we can say that. So let's try to understand a little bit. Anitya is taken as nitya. So when you think about yourself, your body-mind complex is anitya. Think about the dream. The dream body was pretty much there. What was the scope and the duration of that dream body? Only within the dream space and the dream time. Correct? After that dream time, it went. But what was my notion? I took that as nitya, that as me. Impure, right? So ashuchi. Ashuchi means, pure means it is the purest, the finest form. So when you think about yourself, what is the finest or fundamental you? It is the Atma. But what is your notion? What is that fundamental entity according to me? It is not just the Atma. It is the Atma plus body plus mind is me. So I take a compound as the atom. In fact, that is not the atom. That is not the purest one. Means when I take my body as me, I'm taking not the purest me as the me. I'm taking a modified me as me. So ashuchi as shuchi. The third one is more clearly anatma. What is anatma? non-self. The body, the mind, intellect, everything is not Atma. And I take it as Atma. I take that as Atma. So avidya is the notion that takes the impermanent, non-fundamental, anatma as fundamental, pure, and Atma. So that notion which gives me the spiritual ignorance, which gives me a confusion over who am I, that is known as avidya. So very nicely said, and this is what it is. Temporary is taken as eternal, impure is taken as pure, painful. Okay, you think that the greatest happiness comes from the body and the mind and the sense organs. In fact, you don't know it comes from within. So dukkha is taken as sukha, and non-self as self, anatma as atma. This is the avidya. This is the brilliant definition of avidya. So that covers the 3 sutras we had. So again, quick recap. We said Kriya Yoga we introduced in the previous class. Kriya Yoga is Tapa, Satyaya, Ishvara Pranidhana, discipline, study, and Ishwararpana Buddhi, Prasada Buddhi. Why in what perspective the Kriya Yoga is going to help me in my spiritual progress? It leads me to Samadhi by managing these Klishta Buddhis. Remember? Karma Yoga, purity of them, Chitta Shuddhi, that's all it is. So, these Klishta Vrittis are of 5 types: avidya, asmita, raga, dvesha, abhinivesha, means raga, dvesha, abhinivesha. And each of these Klishta Vrittis can be in 4 states. Remember? It can be in dormant, it can be in tanu, it can be in vischinna, and it can be so prasupta, tanu, vischinna, and udara. These are the 4 different stages. And within avidya, avidya means it is the spiritual ignorance. It makes you see temporary things, anitya as nitya, ashuchi as shuchi, dukkha as sukha, and it finally makes me see anatma as atma. Now we are going to see in the next class what is asmita, what is raga, what is dvesha, and what is abhinivesha. This is how it goes. And from there, we are getting into systematic discussion. So let's chant, and then we can go to the Q&A. Right? So,
Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.